Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of High Energy Girl. And today's guest is Vivica Menegaz. She actually was on my show before on Be Well, Be Keto. And she today talks about hormone health, among other things. She's also known as the Nourished Caveman. And we talk about so many awesome things. So I just want you to hear the show and go say hi to Vivica. Welcome to High Energy Girl, a podcast helping women to age stronger. Because it is never too late to get fit, be strong, and feel sexy. I'm your host, Tracy Gluheich, health coach and personal trainer, and founder of HighEnergyGirl.com. Each week, we will either have a guest interview, which will provide you an actionable tip to help you age stronger, or I will do a solo episode that we will have a fun challenge for the month. Please also join our Facebook group, High Energy Girls. Looking forward to seeing you on the inside. Hope you enjoy the show. Give a woman a fish, feed her for a day. Teach a woman to fish, feed her for a lifetime. Teach a woman to fish, end world hunger. Have you ever wanted to help people improve their health journey? Have you thought about coaching people with a keto lifestyle? Would you like to become an integrative health coach? Well, the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, or IIN as we call it, is the largest nutrition school in the country. And in 2011, I graduated from their program and became a health coach. It was completely awesome. We learned over 100 different dietary theories and talk about craziness and confusion. My wish for you is that we can lock arms and create a tribe of health coaches all around the country, all around the world to spread the keto message. If this resonates with you and you would like to look into this option deeper, please go to my blog at highenergygirl.com and click on the link to the right of the homepage. Here you can grab the curriculum guide and see if it inspires you. Since I care so much about my listeners, I negotiated the very best tuition rate for you at IIN. Either you can contact them directly and give them my name, or I will introduce you to a counselor so you can decide if this is a good fit for you and your career goals. Let me know how I can support you in this coaching career opportunity. Hey, Vivica, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Tracy. It's so nice to be here chatting with you.
I know, it's awesome because you were on my other show on Be Well, Be Keto before, and so I feel like it's, old home week type thing,
I know.
So what's going on? What's new and good in your life?
I just working and learning every day and, working at my practice and learning how to best help women. Lately I've been really focusing in with the work with women, and especially I am specializing in hormones. So I always try to go deeper with that. And in the last year, I've added to my services to be able to run labs for women. So both saliva tests for female hormones and full thyroid panels. And I feel that's really exciting for me because a lot of my clients come to me without proper testing. And especially for the thyroid, doctors just kind of run one marker and then they barely know how to interpret that as either kind of like an on and off switch. While instead there is so much more to be seen and understood from the way that our thyroid works. And you probably see that with your audience, but I know that in my audience and the people that I work with, that about 90% of my clients have had some sort of thyroid problem, or they are having thyroid problems and are on thyroid medication. So it's very pervasive issue, and you can't avoid it. The thyroid is so misunderstood by so many practitioners. So I felt like I needed to step up and do something about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I agree with you. Let's kind of rewind a second though and go to so the people who don't yet know you, why don't you let them know a little bit about yourself?
Yes, of course. So I kind of call myself a keto nutritionist, but because I use the ketogenic diet, like my own version of the ketogenic diet, which is a therapeutic version for healing. So I've been a nutritionist for about 7 years, specializing in keto in the last 5 years. And I also specialize in hormone rebalancing like I just mentioned. What else? I'm author of 3 cookbooks. One paleo cookbook, a community book, and then one fat bomb book and one keto paleo book, which is the Keto Paleo Kitchen, is my latest book, which is really what reflects my manifesto, kind of reflects my views on healing and on lifestyle and diet.
So what brought you to that keto paleo movement? Did you have some sort of a healing experience yourself, or what brought you there?
Yeah, of course, how do we get to things? So it's usually throughout our own experiences. And I had a kind of a rude awakening at one moment, and we probably talked about it in the last show, but I discovered that I was pre-diabetic as I was doing my studies of nutrition and, dealing with my own health issues. I find out that I was pre-diabetic, and that was really like kind of a slap in the face to me, because I thought that I was doing everything just so perfectly and eating so well, and I was paleo and nutrient dense and all those good things. But the external signs, like there were certain red flags that were there, like I was gaining weight and I couldn't stop gaining weight, and I had really high inflammation, and my body composition did not look good. There was like the texture of my body was different. It was changing, and I was already in my mid 40s. So people would say, oh, it's kind of normal, you're getting older, so you can expect to have more cellulite, or, to accumulate more fat around your waist and, your buttocks. That's kind of all normal things, and, aches and pains and joints and my back going out. But it wasn't that at all. So once I saw my blood sugars, as I was working for a practice, and I had to start measuring my blood sugars, and that was like the rude awakening, because they were high. They were way too high.
And you were young.
Yeah, like mid 40s. I mean, it's pretty young, right, for that. And you would think, and I wasn't that much overweight, maybe like starting to be about around 30 pounds overweight, which I've always been very thin naturally. So for me, it was a big deal. I couldn't understand what was changing. And it's funny because I had, my maternal grandfather died of diabetes complications. So you would think that I had some knowing of that, but sometimes, things are so easy, like evident. They're so evident we don't see them.
Yeah.
And my whole family, maternal family, had diabetes, and they were like big people with like insulin problems, like really big insulin problems. So I was very insulin resistant myself, and it took a long time to reset that. And that's why I jumped into the ketogenic diet in my research on how to lower insulin resistance. And at the time, there was really not a lot of information about keto, and it was quite obscure as a diet. So it was, information that you could glean from bodybuilders that had done it, from, a control diet for epilepsy, especially in young children. So yeah, that's how I jumped in, like kind of with both feet, because it was a question for me, like of my well-being, my survival, my health. And I immediately found that a ketogenic diet made sense. I'm a big person on common sense. I like common sense is like a big, strong guide for me in my practice, in the way I approach cases and with my clients, and for myself, of course. So, knowing what keto does to the body, it just seemed like the most reasonable and logical way to start regulating my insulin through my food without having to go and get medication. And, something that your audience should know about me is that I'm doctor phobic. I don't like doctors. I have never taken medication, and I really don't want to. So I'm very motivated in finding alternatives, because I don't want to go that route. So that has really pushed me to the limits of my ability to find solutions for myself first, and then for my clients in a way that is holistic and natural, because I really do not like the medical approach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that there is a time and place for it if um but I always think that food is first. My mom has Alzheimer's and I've tried so hard to get her to change her diet. And I interviewed Amy Berger, who wrote Alzheimer's Antidote, because I really believe it's possible for her to reverse her symptoms. And, she's like, it's so hard to give up bread and crackers. I'm like, Mom, isn't it harder to give up your brain?
Yeah. I know, but we all are in different places, Tracy, and I see that with a lot of people that approach me for, wanting to resolve their problems. Not everybody is ready to give up those comforts, and we are just where we are at. Some of us want to go and do the deeper work and resolve the issues, and some of us do not. And it's really about personal choices here, and there is no right or wrong or good or bad. We are all do the choices that we want, So whichever options work for a person, that's what's right for you. And I am absolutely nobody to judge anybody else's choices, because I make my own choices that are probably questionable to some people,
That's funny that you said that because we had a party here the other night for the people. We just all got certified for yoga, and everybody is like vegan and vegetarian, and so everybody brought like vegan and vegetarian food, and we did a Mexican theme at the end of the buffet line that we had. I had a big bowl of grass-fed ground beef that I made into taco type meat.
Nice.
And they're all eating like vegetarian. I swear I don't think anybody touched the meat. It was pretty funny, but I just poke fun of it. It's like you do you, I'll do me. And but it was pretty funny. Like they always joke around about me, and I'm like, yeah, I love vegetables, but I also love my meat.
Yeah, I could not exist without meat, especially red meat, because it grounds me into my body. And, I'm an O negative blood type, so my body really does well with meat. If I even just eat chicken and fish for a few days, I can feel my energy change immediately. And it can be good for certain kind of work, like for me, the equivalent of vegan would probably be eating chicken and fish, because I cannot exist without animal protein, like not in a functional way for my body. And then again, that is also not true, because our mind, I feel, is what decides really what's good for us. And when you really, really, truly believe that something is what is going to do it for you, then it's probably will. And if you decide that carnivore is the solution, and it's, you're all into it and you firmly believe in it, that is probably going to do it. If you decide that that option is vegan, it's going to do it, because our minds have the power to heal or make our bodies sick. So I feel like that is the number one, determinator. But at the same time, for myself, I believe in ancestral diets and evolution, so that I really believe that we have evolved a certain way and our body is continuously evolving. And in this process of evolution, we have reached a point with the changes of our food throughout our evolution as humans. We have reached a point where our bodies have kind of lost the ability to evolve with our food supply, because our food supply went from hunter-gatherers to agricultural and still being real food. And then all of a sudden, about 100 years ago, there has been this turn into industrial foods that are not really foods. They're more like chemicals, and they're made in the lab. They're artificial. So our bodies stop recognizing those as nutrients, as foods. And we pretty much lost the ability to adapt to what we are ingesting for nourishment when it comes to that kind of food. And that's why I'm a big advocate against processed foods, because I don't think that our body is able to recognize them fully. And so we lose the ability to digest and to absorb the nutrients. And that's why you see so much gut dysfunction these days. Person after person, especially in the United States. There are many different factors, but I think that one of the big factors is all the chemical stuff that is in processed foods that has destroyed our microbiome. And so we have lost the ability to digest pretty much. And then all other dysfunctions are coming on top of that. And it's, the gut influences most of our health, our immune system, even the hormonal balance, because it's all connected. Without nutrients, our endocrine glands cannot work.
Yeah. And I believe that those toxins that are ingested, through I love Michael Pollan says food-like substances that people are eating all the time, that those stay in the body and create toxic burden, and you need to do some sort of a detox to get them out. I feel like they lead to stagnation. I've been studying a lot of energy work, and I know that there's a lot of stagnation and emotional stuff and in toxic, chemicals. I heard Mark Hyman, he's doing that brain series right now, and he was saying that in the umbilical cord of babies born right now, they're finding over 1,000 different chemicals.
Yes. And, for me, I think the staple of my practice, like the big foundation of my practice, is detoxification. And, that's what all my work revolves around pretty much, because without detoxification, we can't heal. And that's exactly the reason. And I'm glad there is more awareness about it. I try to educate my clients and my audience about the toxicity. And, I just did a couple of videos on Facebook, live videos about weight loss impossible. And, for me, a lot of times what weight loss impossible boils down to is not how much you exercise, not how much you eat, not what you eat even, but it's the toxicity of your body. And of course, what you eat will play into that, but it's more than just the food, it's your environment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, totally. And I actually saw something that you were doing, the weight loss. What did you call that again?
Weight loss impossible.
Yeah. So you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure, because weight loss is everybody's favorite topic, but I also feel like it's one of the ways that we as women really destroy our health. Is like an indiscriminate weight loss and the attempts to override your body's inability to lose weight in every possible unhealthy way. There are a very good example is people who do keto, and then there are certain people that start a ketogenic diet to lose weight, and two friends, they'll start together, they both have 20 pounds to lose. One person, they'll both lose the water weight, they lose about 5 pounds kind of fast, no problem, and then one keeps losing weight and one just stops, and nothing, they exercise the same, they eat the same, they are the same age, same weight. One just cannot lose weight. And, there are multiple, innumerable examples of this. So many people. I did keto, I started, it was great at the beginning, and then I stopped losing weight. And now, nothing I can do can make me lose even a half a pound. So your body is trying to tell you something, and it's sorry, I can't lose weight. There is something else that's happening here that you have overlooked. There is a big elephant in the room that you're trying to ignore. And you're trying to push and pull and, and shove, but this is not going to happen. It's like trying to push an elephant out of a small door, it's
and she's not. And she's like, I'm feeling like an elephant right now. Why don't you help me out this?
Yeah. But so the body has its own intelligence, and the body is extremely intelligent. It's a beautiful, incredible, super complex machine, organism, that we just keep discovering more and more and more about. But if the body says something or is doing something, there is usually a reason. And that's where we are severely undereducated, especially by doctors and the stuff that doctors tell people, because doctors are severely undereducated in that respect, in the holistic view of the body. And also they just focus on pathology pretty much. So most of what doctors study in school is pathology. They have no idea of nutrition. Most doctors will tell you, conventional doctors will tell you that the diet has no impact on your health. And, mostly they don't even consider toxicity and the accumulation of toxins because that is not part of what they have been taught. So it's completely off the radar. And for the last 20, 30 years, there has actually been a strong movement of education about environmental toxins and food toxins and how they impact our body. And there is a thing called endocrine disruptors that it's really major. And I see it in the United States because, I'm from Italy and I travel quite a bit to other countries. And I also have international clients. Like I have clients in Europe, I have clients I had in Australia, in New Zealand, where was like the furthest one? Not Africa yet, but I had a client in Singapore. So very different kind of environments. And one of the things that is really prevalent here with all the chemicals in the environment is these endocrine disruptors that are especially estrogen mimickers or exogenous estrogens that for women are a really, really big problem. And not only they end up unbalancing your whole endocrine system, but also they cause a certain reaction. So what happens is that you get exposed to these toxins, they enter your body, and then your liver is desperately trying to keep up with detoxification. But because of the exposure is so high and it comes from multiple factors combined to improper nutrients in the diet and, chemicals in the diet and then chemicals in the environment, stress, busy, stressful lifestyle, all of that, your liver can't keep up. So it starts getting overloaded and congested, and it just doesn't know what to do with these toxins anymore. So it starts trying to store them away so they won't kill you. Our body is trying to stay alive and it's trying not to get sick. So the best thing to do is just pack them away into cold freeze storage, and where they get stored is in fat cells. So all those toxins are packed away in your fat. And that's why your body has to keep accumulating fat so that it can store away toxins. And when your liver is congested and your kidney pathways are congested and there is nowhere for the toxins to go, that's exactly where they go. They go into your fat. And the body will not let go of them at any cost because its intelligence says that you're going to be sick from that. And a lot of people who starts losing weight, even with keto, and they lose weight quickly, they might experience a lot of strange symptoms like headaches or more brain fog or fatigue or, rashes, hives. A lot of the symptoms are just toxins coming out. Or the body will just not let you lose weight, period.
So what do we do? How do we get those toxins out?
Well, we have to detox. And the first step is always supporting detoxification pathways. So having a proper nutritional support for liver and kidney and the skin and the lungs. But especially you need to start, well, the first step really is changing your diet into a clean diet, at least. If not, doesn't necessarily have to be a ketogenic diet for everybody, but at least it has to be clean. There is, of course, always having the individual insulin resistance or carbohydrate tolerance. Depending on how well you can tolerate carbs, your diet should reflect that factor and then be a clean diet on top of that. And then we need to really have a look at our environment and start to look at all the toxic chemicals we're using on our skin, in our households, on our clothes, what we wash them and dry them with. And then, at the same time, we support the body in the ability to release the toxins. Heavy metals are really prevalent these days. And pretty much, I would say every single client that I work with has some level of heavy metal toxicity. And this is something that we can't avoid because by many years of leaded gasoline is now in the soil. It's in the environment and industrial waste, industrial toxins, and it's in the food that we eat from the aluminum pans that we use, or Lead can be in the water now because it came from the soil. There are so many different avenues that those metals will get into our bodies. Mercury is another huge one that we find all the time. And then, we need to be able to detox that. And that's a very slow process because it's not, a lot of doctors use chelation therapy. I found that pretty dangerous. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention amalgams and dental work. That's a big one with heavy metals. So the detoxification process has to be done at the body's pace, at the body's ability to release those metals, those toxins, so that it doesn't make you sick even more again, or, on top of what you already have, because the toxins are bouncing all over your body and they're not coming out at the rate that they're coming out of your tissues. So it's a process, but of course it's a very possible process. Sometimes, the detoxification alone is the healing journey. And it takes, anywhere from 3 months to a couple of years, depending on how much of a toxic load you hold inside your body. I gave the case of a few of my clients and their successes, and, people who had not been able to lose a half a pound for years. And once we started detoxifying, they slowly started to lose weight finally, and their body composition drastically started changing, which is a really beautiful thing to see. And it happened to me as well.
That's cool. So it's like you take away the toxins and then the body can actually get back into homeostasis and find its happy place again.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, that's cool. So then you said earlier that you recently got certified with hormones and thyroid and all of that.
I actually been certified. I just started to working with a lab that I can run the appropriate labs through that will run full panels and the panels that I would like to see from a functional standpoint. So using, saliva tests for female hormones is really important because we can't really see the active form of the hormones if we do them through blood. And a lot of practitioners will all run blood tests for female hormones, which is, I don't know, I don't even know how they can think about that being helpful because, first of all, they run one sample for a cycling woman, and a woman's hormones during her cycle, they fluctuate up and down in curves that are supposed to look a certain way. So if you don't see the whole curve and see how the hormone modulates throughout the cycle, how can you have an idea where the problem lies? It's like trying to interpret a movie from a photograph, a screenshot from the movie. You just see one picture, but there is a whole movie. And, a lot of stuff happening.
Yeah. So, and when you do your saliva test, do you do it several times throughout the day or?
No, it's done there are 8 samples throughout the month, and that creates a graph for the different hormones that we work with. So it's estrogen, progesterone, and then there is added cortisol because that, of course, influences the female hormone function as they're all cholesterol-based hormones and they all kind of work together.
Right. Interesting. That's interesting. So how many different tests do you run, and are they all saliva or do you do a combination?
No, it depends. So for female hormones, so estrogen, and progesterone, when there are period dysfunctions, that would be a saliva test. So if you are suspecting PCOS, or if you are having heavy periods, irregular periods, no periods at all, those will be saliva tests to see what's happening actually inside your body. And for cortisol, it's also saliva, and it's a test that's done in one day with 4 samples throughout the day. And then there is thyroid hormones, and that test is done through blood. And it's just one sample of, a blood sample, but all the proper markers need to be run, which there are at least 7 markers minimum that we can look at for the thyroid instead of just 1, 2, or 3 markers, in order for us to really understand where is the issue coming from. Is it primary hypothyroidism, or is it secondary or tertiary hypothyroidism? Are you having Hashimoto's? Are you having an autoimmune reaction, or are you just selenium deficient? And you're so selenium deficient that your body is not able to make thyroid hormones, and that's why you're low. Are you iodine deficient, or is your body not able to digest and break down proteins, so you are deficient in the carrier proteins for the thyroid hormones? See, there are a lot of different scenarios there that need to be observed.
Mm-hmm. What do you mostly see out there, though? Like, what do you see any common trends these days that for women that are really kind of holding them back?
What do you mean by holding them back?
Well, for like what you said earlier about the two friends, and one of them was toxic, and so she couldn't lose the weight. And I'm not focused on weight so much as I am on just health and aging,
Right.
because I think people put too much weight into this number on the scale. They care so
Yeah.
much about that instead
Yeah.
of just about being healthy.
Right. I totally agree. For me, the weight is just, it's like a symptom,
Right.
it's just a symptom of disease. Weight itself, it's not like an isolated factor that can be resolved on its own. Because if you really think about it, for most people, yes, they might not eat in the correct way, but most people are not overweight or obese because they're just eating all day long. They might have larger portion, but they might also eat the wrong things, but the health is what is usually the underlying factor. And there are studies of obesity, and in those studies, like, it's a very small percentage of people who have healthy markers and they're just overweight. Usually what we call syndrome X
Mm-hmm.
is metabolic syndrome. It comes with a number of conditions that are all piling together to create that. And it's like diabetes too, so an insulin resistance, and then cardiovascular issues related to that, to the sugar, to the amount of carbohydrates that consumed. Because and here is a whole other conversation, but there has been this great misunderstanding for the last 40-50 years that cardiovascular issues are based on the consumption of fat, when instead most of the issues with your cardiovascular systems come from the overconsumption of sugar and carbohydrates. And again, it's connected to the insulin pathways, and it's connected to inflammation, and it's connected to the body's inability, like, having to deal with high inflammation all the time, which is driven by excess carbs and sugar, not by fat. If you see like the profile of a person who has a high sugar diet for long periods of time and a person who has a high fat diet, fat is not inflammatory unless it's a rancid fat. While sugar can always be inflammatory when it's, we have as humans not evolved with such large quantities of carbohydrates, especially simple refined sugars like we are consuming right now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, yeah, our body can just not keep up.
Yeah, it's funny. I did my blood work recently for my job, which happens to be in dental. Kind of funny that you mentioned amalgams.
Mhm.
And it was crazy because like they barely ran any markers. Okay, like they probably tested me for like, I don't know, 7, 8 things.
Mhm.
And my LDL was like a little bit higher than they wanted it, and my total cholesterol was like 205. But my
Mhm.
HDL was high and my triglycerides were super, super low, like
Mhm.
40.
That's good.
Yeah, so they said that your HDL to triglyceride ratio, they wanted it to be your HDL to be half of your triglycerides. Okay, so say if your triglycerides were 100, they wanted your HDL to be 50. Well, my HDL is higher than my triglycerides. But they're
Mhm.
still like the lab's like, oh, this is dangerous, and I'm like, oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, we also need to keep in mind that the ratios, the parameters that labs use to determine if you're in range or out of range are mostly determined by an average of all the lab work that comes through a lab or through the association that determines the parameter. They just take all these labs and do an average of them. And that determines the statistic like of parameters. So if a lot of people have very unhealthy markers, the markers will be unhealthy. They're not going to be reflective of somebody's health. And functional markers are also a lot stricter because they do not include that dysfunctional range. A healthy range is a much narrower range than what we usually see in the interpretation that conventional, medical doctors will give you of your labs.
Right. And that is because they are looking for optimal numbers rather than the average numbers. Is that correct?
Well, the functional interpretation looks for optimal numbers. Right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's cool. So, and that's probably what you're doing as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, what is next for you? So I know you have your cookbooks and you have women's course. What are you working on right now?
Honestly, right now it's I'm just working on my practice, but I've been doing a lot of personal work on myself because what I have seen, I'm always my own guinea pig, and one of the things that I want to incorporate more and more into my practice is understanding the deeper root causes of disease. So for me at this point in my conclusions is that the deepest root causes of disease are always emotional and energetic. Mm-hmm. And like you say, you're doing a lot of energy work. A lot of people are waking up to the fact that our minds and our beliefs are so strong and so powerful that they will influence the physical body to a great extent. So we have the power in our mind to heal or to make ourselves sick. And, running a nutrition practice for these last 5 years, I, saw case after case where we did everything right, but things were not changing and we could not get to the bottom of the issues. So I started really seeing that in myself as well with certain things, and having me being mostly pretty strict and pretty knowledgeable about my own health, but then not being able to overcome certain issues and my hormones and my stress always being really high and my hormones not responding to treatment when they should have been by the book, when I know exactly what to do and still it's not working. Why is it not working? My body's really clean and, I do everything right. Why is it not working? And so I started really investigating those deeper roots in childhood trauma and, limiting beliefs and patterns of self-sabotage and just mental patterns that we live by that will drive our whole physical reflection of our health and well-being. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the work that I've been really excited about, as well as, of course, all the physiological. But I've been doing the physiological for quite a long time. And so that part for me, it's on autopilot almost, it's like driving a car. When you drive a car for 20 years and then you really drive your car, you don't even have to think what you're doing. Yeah. But then suddenly you're on a big 18-wheeler and then it's there is a learning curve right there, right? So I think that I want to move beyond just the strictly physiological and be a truly holistic perspective of how to help people navigate both things. As another thing is, Tracy, that when you detox, it opens up, stuff in your body. It opens up places in your body when you have stored toxins, but toxins can also be toxic thoughts or toxic emotions.
Right.
And those will come out as well as you start detoxifying the actual physical toxins. So how do we navigate that,
It's funny that you said that because I am working on a book and I'm doing research. And wait, I'm trying to find the notes. I can't find them. But so there is something in an infrared sauna that helps you detox emotional. And I found a study on that. And yeah, I have to pull that up later. But it was talking about how it actually does help release and clear that. And that's kind of the stuff I'm working on, like with Qigong. And I'm learning Tai Chi, but I haven't spent enough time to really focus on it. But that's like one of my other goals.
Yeah, that's awesome. I would love for you to share that research, the study, maybe on the notes of the podcast, so that also, my listeners and my patients will be really interested in reading that information.
Oh, yeah. Like sauna therapy is really, really amazing. And there's a physician here in my town. He's one of the vegans I mentioned earlier. And I told him, he was over the other night, and I said, I really want to open a wellness center. Like, there's nothing in my area that there's nothing like that. And he's like, well, I'm interested. I said, well, let's do it. And so some of the modalities we want in there is like a sauna, because we know that, with the Finnish study that it's very, really, really helpful for aging. Red light therapy. I want to do like a float tank.
Oh, yes.
What else did we say? He said there's a salt room, which I'm going to go check out one locally.
I love the salt rooms. They have them in the Korean spas. I'm lucky enough to live close to Los Angeles, so I can go to the Korean spa occasionally, but I love that. And, those are ancient practices, and they have salt rooms. They have infrared sauna rooms. They have jade sauna rooms. They have all kinds of like amazing things, and scrubbing, which is kind of like, dry brushing. They scrub you to death at the Korean place.
Oh, I'm going to find that. What's it called? A Korean spa?
Yeah, Korean spas are really famous in LA. I used to go to them like 20 years ago when I was the only white person inside the Korean spa with all the Korean ladies, and nobody spoke English. And it was awesome. And now everybody goes because they're really, really awesome ways of treating. And Korean women have these rituals where they go like at least once a week, and they'll get scrubbed. And then they sweat, and then they sit in the tub with like herbs in their hot tub. And, it's just like so, so, so important. It's like weekly detoxification. And, it maintains like your skin, like your body's pathways of detox, like active. Is just wonderful.
That is cool. Okay, I'm going to have to find a Korean spa near me, because that is really cool. I love that. And I've never heard of the salt room until he mentioned it. But we are also looking at possibly doing hyperbaric oxygen, and he wants to do cryotherapy. Yeah,
that's all really, really beautiful and valid. And yeah, if you ever visit Los Angeles, you should definitely look into going and visit those spas, because they have all of that. Like the newer ones, they have the cold room, and they have all the different saunas, and they have some have like the more specific therapies, and they have massages, and then they have scrubs. So it's heaven.
Okay, I'm going to have to look that up. My son lives in right outside of Santa Monica in West LA.
Oh, perfect. You can go visit him and then take a trip to Koreatown to the spa.
Okay, I'm going to have to try that out. That's awesome. So, Vivica, how can people find you?
So my blog is thenourishedcaveman.com. And I also am, of course, on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I am on Pinterest. I'm everywhere, The Nourished Caveman. And I created a special page for your listeners, so they can find it at thenourishedcaveman.com/podcast. And in that page, there is a little download that I created so that they can find a list of all the perfect markers they can ask when they go do hormonal testing, depending on which system you're testing, if sex hormones, adrenals, or thyroid. So it lists the proper way that you should get tested, and a little bit of an explanation of why you need those tests and what to look for, what to ask your doctor. So it's a guide in helping you get tested the right way. And then I also offer a discounted consult for people who need to run their labs, or they already have labs that want to be, read for them.
Oh, cool. So it's all right there on that page. Awesome. Because
Yes.
I'm going to go look at that too for me.
Okay.
I haven't had any extensive labs done lately other than food sensitivities. And I did what is it called? Viome? Is that
Yes. Yes,
have you
yes.
done that one?
I haven't done it on myself because my gut is really good, but I have done saliva tests for my hormones, and I have done an MTHFR test for the mutation I suspected I had. So I did a DNA test, and I regularly run my thyroid panels because I used to have Hashimoto's and I was hypothyroid, but that's kind of cleared up now.
Oh, cool.
So I resolved my thyroid issues, but about once a year, I check my thyroid to make sure that everything is still in the clear.
And I want the listeners to hear what you just said. That was the very, very, very important, that she cleared her Hashimoto's and hypothyroid. That is amazing and what would you say? Because I know I have my own opinion, but what would you say was responsible for, number one, creating it to begin with, and then number two, clearing it out?
Creating it was toxicity, diet, and lifestyle, stress. So gluten, dairy, stress, and eating the wrong things, and just in general. Probably predisposition, a little bit of genetic predisposition for hypothyroidism is valid, but I also believe in epigenetics. So I don't think genetic is a sentence for life at all. Not at all. We can change that anytime and switch our genes on and off. Even me with the MTHFR mutation that I can't change, but I can work around it with nutrition. So making all those changes and, really eating the way that I'm supposed to eat and, having the right lifestyle. And even though the last 3 years have been very stressful for me, I went through a divorce and a lot of, upheaval in my life and moving and changing lifestyle completely. So you would say that would have made the hypothyroidism worse, but instead it got better because I was doing all the other things to support it. And so that tells you that you can live crazy lives that we live these days that are so stressful and so busy and so much pressure on us. And still, if you do the right things for your health, you're able to navigate that life in a healthier way, for sure.
And so MTHFR, I did the 23andMe and that came up positive on both sides.
So you have both mutation, both genes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there is certain supplementation that you can take, and that helps because what MTHFR does, it's affecting your ability to complete detoxification. And also, you can become either B12 toxic or deficient. And so there are certain supplements that you can take to help your liver, at least intermittently, like on and off, and then seeing the results, that you want to achieve. So you can suspend it and then start it again, really seeing methylation support. Sometimes methylation support is needed. Sometimes makes things worse if you don't have the foundational elements that your liver needs. So it could be choline, it could be folinic acid, it could be folates, it could be B12, depending on the person, and creatine. Such elements are very important for people with the mutation.
Yeah, I did the the 23andMe and then Genetic Genie. And it says MTHFR C677T is red, so positive. And then the MTHFR A1298C is negative.
Oh, okay. So you only have one.
So I have one out of three because they didn't test one of them. They didn't test the P39P.
Yeah, they just tested the two main ones. But so that the one you have is the more significant one, but that does, you are partly functional, so that is not as bad as having both of them, which means that when you do have both genes mutated, then supplementation is probably a good idea. But in the case of just one, I also have just one. I think the same one as yours. So in that case, you can get away with supplementing. It will be better. Like for me, one thing that really showed up was irritability and being like extremely irritable. And once I started supplementing for the mutation, that went away. And I supplemented for about 6 months and then I stopped to see what would happen. And like, I feel like I'm okay for now. And then we'll see, like I can just monitor my symptoms and see how they apply, you know.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay, I'm going to have to look deeper into that one. I'm like, seriously, my dad has cancer, like for time number 4. My mom has Alzheimer's and Hashimoto's and has been on multiple medications for, depression and cholesterol and whatever else. So I'm like, I thought, well, I got to just see where I'm at. But, my lifestyle is a little bit different than theirs as far as eating and movement and, all that. So.
Yeah, we can definitely like rewrite the genes and turn them on and off and create a completely different life for ourselves. Even our parents had certain things and, we were inherited this DNA, but the DNA is not written in stone. Yeah. It's a living organism that can be changed. So we have the power to do that.
Absolutely. And I am totally taking that belief and truth to fight whatever I need to fight and just make really good choices as often as I do, So that's awesome. Well, listen, girlie, I appreciate you. And it was so lovely to talk with you again. So thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Tracy. It was amazing again. And I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you.
Me too. Thanks, my dear. I'll see you when I come to LA. I'm going to look you up.
Okay, come visit. We'll go to the spa together.
Yeah, for sure. We got to do that. That'd be awesome.
I know.
Okay, dear. Well, I'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Okay, girls, get your hormones tested. I think this is a good place for all of us to start because that way we can stay imbalanced and stay younger. So please go check out the show notes page at highenergygirl.com/show. Okay, and please do us a favor, head on over to iTunes, give us a rating and review so that more people can be inspired to age stronger in health and become the best version of themselves possible. Thank you so much for listening and go out and make it a great day. This podcast contains the opinion and thoughts of its host and guests. It is intended to provide helpful and informative material on the subjects covered. All statements made on the podcast have not been evaluated by the FDA and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. If the listener requires professional assistance or advice, please contact your personal medical doctor. Both host and guest specifically disclaim any responsibility for any liability, loss, or risk, personal or otherwise, which is incurred as a consequence directly or indirectly of the use and application of any of the contents of these episodes. Like I said, this is my opinion and I could be wrong.